So I'm happy to talk today to WHU professor Jochen Menges about his latest research on charismatic leadership of women and men. So, Professor Menges, maybe we can start with a short introduction on the topic.
Sure. I can just give you a quick summary of what the study actually is about. We looked at when do women and men get attributed charisma. And past research suggests that it's a lot about the behaviors that people engage in. But our research suggests that it's not just the behavior, it's actually the context, the type of organization in which men and women enact charismatic leadership behaviors. And we find that even if men and women behave exactly in the same way, have exactly the same performance, the extent to which they're attributed charisma depends on the type of context in which they're placed. We compared two contexts. One context is the traditional hierarchical setting that we know from organizations, with clear commands of control and everything. The other context is the new sort of like flat hierarchies, where there is sort of a lot of cohesion and interaction, where everybody goes to each other to ask for advice. And if you compare these two settings, then you find that men are more likely to get attributed charisma if they work in a traditional hierarchical setting, and women tend to get more charisma when they work in the flat, sort of new interactive type of setting. And that means that the charisma that men and women get attributed depends not just on the behavior that they display, but on the very context in which they're placed.
So independent of the setting where I work, how important is charisma for my career? Is there a linear relationship to it?
Oh yes. Charisma is really very, very important. Charisma is the quality that sets successful leaders apart from the less successful ones. It's not all about charisma in leadership. Of course, there are other aspects that are important that determine great leadership, but charisma is very powerful in swaying people's opinion, in getting people to do stuff, and from about 30 years of research on this particular type of leadership, we know that charisma tends to lead to high performance. So you do want to be seen as a charismatic leader if you work in an organization. However, whether you are seen as a charismatic leader now with our research depends not just on whether you behave in these charismatic ways, but whether you are placed in a context that facilitates attributions of charisma to you. And of course, the problem in that context is that most organizations are still structured in the old traditional hierarchical way. That means these organizations feature the classical gender stereotypes for men, namely agency, dominance, power structure, status striving, and all of that. And that's why in these contexts, men are much more likely to be seen as charismatic than women, right? And that causes the problem because, yes, we are moving towards more flatter structures, we are moving towards more interactive environments, but these environments are still in the minority. And yet we know that these environments are the ones that benefit women because they feature the gender stereotype that is associated with women. Taking care of each other, nurturing behaviors, communal behaviors, solidarity. These are all things that we stereotypically associate with women. And that's why when there's a woman leading in this type of environment, it is for us a match, it is a fit. And as such, we attribute more charisma to a woman in that context.
So if I happen not to have this fit and as a woman work in a hierarchical setting, is there a workaround for me? Or do I need to change the organization?
I don't think that there is much of a workaround, actually. I think the problem is that most people don't even notice, right? What we are talking about here in terms of the phenomenon happens outside of our awareness. We do this all the time, and we are hardly aware of these things to operate, right? It took our research to actually highlight and reveal that there is such a bias. So as an individual, you could, of course, as a woman, try to get a more cohesive team setting, right? Try to stay away from too much power structures, too many layers of hierarchy, and so on. That likely will lead to more attributions of charisma to you. If you're a man leader, you want to do some of the other stuff, right? You might want to keep the power structures and so on, because that, again, will facilitate charismatic attributions to you. But apart from this stuff that you can do as a man and a woman leader in your own position, what is really necessary is that organizations think about their structure as a whole, the culture that they facilitate, the type of environment that they create. And if you happen to be in a leadership role where you have some sway over the type of structure that your organization has, then the task is, based on this type of finding, to set it up in ways that actually facilitate both the advancement of women and men into leadership roles.
So how do you think, how big is the awareness of the topics of the research you just showed in the organizations or even in politics?
Oh, I don't think that there is any awareness of it all whatsoever, right? We still believe that it's all about the individual behavior, right? Either you're a good performing leader and therefore you get attributed charisma or not. And we find here in this research that actually, you know, there's other stuff going on, subtle stuff going on. And I think it takes research like that to bring it to our awareness. Once we are aware of it, we may be able to correct for it. But in terms of the awareness that you're asking for, I think it's zero as of now.
You said we are able to correct this. So what would be appropriate measures, depending on the contextual setting that the organization has, to promote a diverse leadership team?
Yes, I think, you know, the first thing is create awareness of these biases operating. Reveal the biases. For instance, by comparing, you know, soft ratings for things like charisma with hard outcome measures. And maybe you see that women may actually have the same outcome and yet are seen as less charismatic in traditional hierarchical environments. And that may bring you to wonder, why is that? Well, you're seeing the effect operating that we found in our research in your own organization. Beyond that, you need to create measures that facilitate diversity in your organization. But we need to go beyond this idea of diversity, gender diversity, age diversity, demographic diversity on any dimension, to come to the idea of inclusion. Because diversity by itself doesn't do the job. Inclusion is making diversity work. And inclusion means that I don't put you into any sort of bucket for the type of superficial characteristics that you possess, but rather I see you as an individual that is different from me and that I can learn from. And we're all different. We're all different. And so we could potentially all learn from each other. And to the extent that we appreciate differences as a source of learning, I think we'd be much better off as organizations and, by the way, as a society as a whole.
So these are very interesting findings coming out from your research. Do you have any future projects on this?
Well, there is more research in the pipeline, and I hope we'll get a chance to speak again about future stuff. So for all of you, stay tuned. We might soon have some more to talk about and some further research coming out of WHU Otto Beisheim School of Management.